is inappropriate.
Inappropriate.
Even though we were learning from it.
But we're talking about it in context. We're coming way out of context. It's like, what is going on? All right. Okay, so your brain is totally full of all those STD facts and stuff now? Yeah? You guys see that on your desk there is a green card. Did everybody get one?
Yeah.
You didn't get one yet? Okay.
I finally have a green card.
Sweet. Okay, this is green card. Nice. Sweet. We're going to work on that. This is a card that I want you guys to just hang on to. Okay, again, when we come in here, remember, we're not making judgments. We're not making assumptions about you. We're not assuming that you need this card for yourself personally. But we know, like we said at the beginning, like I said yesterday, everybody's going to know someone who is going to run into this kind of stuff sooner or later. Okay, if it's not this year, if it's not in high school, it's going to be by the time you're in college. All right, so you guys totally have information now where you can ask questions. You can email us if something comes up and you have a question about it. The information on the back is one of the closest in the local pregnancy center here in town where you can get free information. They're a resource for you. They do testing there for pregnancy and for STI. So that's just a resource for you to hang on to, keep in your purse, keep in your wallet, keep in your bag, give it to a friend, whatever, you know. That's what that's all about. Okay, so we're going to kind of wrap this up now. We've gotten through all of the factual information as far as the statistics that you need and all those kinds of things, but we kind of want to give you some of the reality stuff too. Okay, we want you to know what really happens. You know, how do these kinds of situations affect people? What kinds of choices are people like you, high school students, really making? You know, do you really care about that stuff? Are you really thinking about it? Remember when we started yesterday, we talked about thinking about what your goals are. You guys all said you wanted to go to college, what your plans are, what you view it to look like down the road, right? None of you said you're hoping that you have a baby by the time you're age 17 or hoping that you have an STD or two at least maybe by the time you're 20 or 21. You said that's not part of the plan. Okay, so we really got to take a look at now, okay, what are my actions? How am I choosing? All right? What I want you to know, and this is something you definitely want to write down, is that as much as people are talking about sex in high school, as much as you hear the jokes about it, jokes about cup sex, jokes in the locker room, jokes after a game, jokes after whatever, you know, friends on Facebook, people on the weekends, all the different things, a lot of it is really just talk, okay? And actually 57% of high school students are not having sex. They are not sexually active. Okay? 57% of students are not having sex. And that was actually that's a current stat from something new that came out at the beginning of this year. All right? And it was an increase actually over the last 5 years by about 4%. Okay? So that means more students are not having sex today than 5 years ago. More people are choosing to wait. All right? There's something to that. The second part of that is of those students who have had sex, 67% of them, so 2/3 of the students who have been sexually active say they wish they had waited. All right? That means that they had regret about the choices that they made. Okay? And I want you to know too that these statistics, neither of those come from a Christian resource. Okay? So this isn't some like church thing coming in here. You know, because we talked about that whole thing of God in the Bible and science and all this stuff and doesn't match and do I care what God says and all this other stuff, right? But the science part and the numbers that we see, they actually match what we know from God as well, okay? This is actually from an organization called National Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy. It's really long, but you can look that up, okay? And I think it's really interesting, especially when you're taking it from a non-religious perspective, to wonder why young adults like you, okay, because remember teens is 12 to 19, would say they wish they hadn't done it. Okay, because when we see it on TV, they make it look like it's no big deal, right? They just don't really care. The next day it doesn't really matter. Oh, they got in a fight, oh, whatever, and you know, move on. You guys know what I'm talking about? You guys see that? How many of you, let's think about this. How many of you, even now, let's just talk about here at school, okay? We'll have this imaginary couple, okay? You may be thinking of someone in your own brain, okay? But let's say we have this couple, okay? Guy meets girl here on campus, all right? They meet, they like each other. You know, he's got his set of friends, she's got her set of friends. Everything's hunky-dory, everything's lovely, and they're now in a relationship, okay? They're hanging out all the time. They're everywhere together. They're like attached at the hip. you know, all this other stuff. The girls are kind of bumming because every time she's, you know, they want to go hang out, she's got to be with the guy, and he's got to come with them, or something's going up. They can't just have girl time. The guys are like, dude, we want to just, like, you know, go hang out, like, leave the girl at home, you know, and the whole thing. And so the friendships are under stress, all right? Now this relationship, this imaginary relationship that we're talking about, let's say they have become sexually active, all right? They're sexually active now. It's, you know, they are like it. They're like so set that this is the relationship forever. You know, I love you. They're doing the I love yous. They're doing the whole thing, right? So a couple months goes by of this, right? And all of a sudden, he's getting kind of tired of how she's like bragging on him all the time for stuff. You know, and always wanting to be together. He's wanting to go hang out with the guys now and again, right? And he's also, you know, he's got other girlfriends, but girlfriends he wants to hang out with. She didn't like that too much. All right, and she too, kind of the same situation. You know, the girls are like giving her a hard time because, man, she's always with this guy. They don't ever get to see their friends anymore, ever get to hang out. She's getting mad because she's talking to all these other girls and all this other stuff's going on. So they're at it now. They're fighting. All right, they're fighting. Okay, all of a sudden they break up. Now, next day they come to school. All right, they are hating on each other. Okay, they're hating on each other. Their friends are like trying to stay away from, you know, the whole situation. They see someone that they know from the opposite camp walking down the hall, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I gotta go down another hallway because they just don't even want to cross paths with that person anymore. There's all the drama going on. How many of you have already seen something like this happen? Okay. Right? That's like half of you. This is sophomore year. You tracking with me? It's like a lot. It's like what you see on TV. You know what I'm saying? Those stories that we see on TV that you're like, that's nuts. But you know what? That nuts kind of situation, that nuts scenario, is happening in these hallways. It's happening here. Okay? So we have to figure out how we're going to guard our heart. What are we going to do about that? What are our boundaries? What are we going to put into place so that we don't get into that position, that situation? All right? Now, we talked about this too at the beginning. Remember, we talked about what are the reasons someone chooses to have, or chooses to wait, or is told to wait, especially in high school. We talked about all these different things. This is what makes up who you are from a health perspective. We are mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, social, and environmental, affected by our environment beings. Okay? We cannot make a decision that only affects us in one category. Like, I'm gonna take this one out and I'm gonna set it over here, and I'm gonna block those other ones out. All right? Or I'm going to take this one out and I'm going to put social over here, and how I behave socially is not going to have an impact on everything else about who I am. All right? We cannot do that. You cannot separate the sex and love thing because of the mental, emotional stuff that's connected with it. The social stuff, you know, how it impacts our friendships. You know, if you're sexually active with somebody, chances are, at this stage in your life, if you were sexually active, you're probably hiding, sneaking around, lying about it. I'm not saying you guys, I'm just saying someone in general. Okay? Because you're not supposed to, right? You're not supposed to get caught, right? Okay? So in order to do that, we're having to make choices that are impacting our relationships with our parents. Where are you going? Oh, I'm going to so-and-so's house. Right? Hoping they don't check up on you. Alright? I'm going to be in these places. It affects everything about who you are. Alright, now, we're going to have more than 2 examples today with the time that we have left, because we got just you guys are loaded with a plethora of interesting stories in this classroom right now. But I want to share with you, since I'm standing here right now, I want to share with you a little bit about me. We're going to touch on a couple other things I want to make sure we are familiar with, that y'all are familiar with before you have your quiz. And then Jesse and Rob are going to share a little bit of stuff too. So I want you to know, when I was in high school, I was a lot like you all, as far as motivated with classes, involved with a lot of stuff. I was an athlete part of the time early on. I got more involved in the theater department, music, choir, and all that kind of stuff. And definitely wanted to go to college, definitely wanted to try to get a scholarship just to help me get into college, those kinds of things. I wanted to travel. Being in theater, I wanted to be in New York. And I knew that someday down the road I would want to be married and have a family. Okay? So, as a junior in high school, I was doing all the stuff you guys are going to be starting to do now, but more so doing next year, getting the SATs out of the way, SATs, ACTs. I was auditioning already. I was checking out, you know, other colleges, seeing where I wanted to go, and all those kinds of things were coming into play. All right, by the beginning of my senior year, I was already accepted to the school that I wanted to go to, and I did get a scholarship. I got a music theater scholarship. So what that meant for me is, in my mind, like, everything was starting to come true. Like, this is the exciting time. This is when the letter comes in the mail and you've been waiting for it. You know, they open it up. All right, and it's got like little sparklies in it, and little glitters that drop out when you open the paper. Okay, it's really cool. All right, so it's really exciting. But what happened, you guys, is I was accepted early on in my senior year, okay? And I was 18 years old. My birthday's in September, so I turned 18 at the beginning of my senior year. So in my mind, not only was I already in college, I was an adult too. There wasn't anybody who was going to tell me what to do or how to live my life at that point, okay? So when we're thinking about the timeline, the whole like, where am I going idea, even though I was in high school, I was down here in college, mentally, all right, making choices differently because I didn't have to impress anybody anymore. I didn't have to do any more testing. I didn't have to do any more auditions. I got to totally relax, okay, and totally enjoy my senior year. All right, so what happened is I lost my focus. All right, it doesn't just stop with college. It's supposed to go all the way down there, right, with the other things that I wanted after that. You know, high school is training for what's next. What's next is college. College is training for what's next. That's life, okay? It's not just like a stopping point, okay? And so for me, I was having sex outside of marriage my senior year of high school, and I got pregnant. And all of a sudden, here I go, full steam ahead, and my life took this turn that I couldn't erase. I couldn't rewind it. I couldn't do it over. I couldn't wish it away or cry it away or think it away. You know? And there I was having to make pretty much one of the biggest decisions of my entire life. Okay? What direction am I going to go? When you get pregnant or you get a girl pregnant, there's 3 options. What are those options? With the baby? Abortion? Adoption? Or keeping the baby. Right? Having the baby and keeping the baby. Okay? Interesting that they come in that order when you think of them. Okay? You have to know that abortion is not a magically erased pill or procedure. Okay? It doesn't just go away. All right? All 3 of those choices are really difficult. Okay? And every single one of them is going to change you for the rest of your life. You'll never be the same. Okay? That's stamped in on the timeline now. All right? And we really get caught up because we know that it's the woman's body who carries the baby. We know that she's the one that's got to deal with all those kinds of things. And we kind of lose sight of all the guys that are involved with those scenarios. Right? Remember at the beginning I said 2,500 girls getting pregnant every single day? 2,500 guys count in that process too. They just became dads. They may just not know it yet. All right? And so we have to think about those kinds of things. Gentlemen, I want you to know this stuff too, because we lose sight of the guy-girl thing in that sometimes. You know, a lot of times it's easy to just think, well, I don't know, I'm just kind of, you know, I don't know what she thinks. I want to support her, whatever she does. I want to be there for her, whatever the case may be. What you need to know as far as the law is concerned, if you get a girl pregnant in the state of California, you have 0 rights as far as how she decides to handle that pregnancy. She is free to make that decision without your consent, without your agreement, without your any type of permission. Okay? She's not even legally bound to tell you, just so you know that. Okay? A girl in the state of California can get an abortion at age 12 without her parents knowing about it. Alright? That's a scary commentary, I guess. It's a scary idea, you know, to think about that. That's scary enough in and of itself, having to deal with it. Think about a 12-year-old. You're talking about a kid. You're talking about a middle school student, you know, dealing with those kinds of things. So, guys, what that looks like and what that means for you is that if you're the one who's got the college scholarship and you've got the dreams and you've got the stuff and you've got the plan, you may not even know if you want to be totally lifelong connected to this lady, to this girl, whatever, however old you might be at the time, all right? But if she decides to keep that baby, you will be held financially responsible if your name's on that birth certificate. Okay, and the state will make sure of that. Okay, they can garnish wages. That means they can take wages out of your check. They can take scholarship money. They can revoke your driver's license. There's all sorts of things that they can do in order to maintain that. But then on the flip side, let's say you're like, okay, well, I want to be responsible, and you know, this was a risk, and I took that risk, and I want to be there, and this is my kid, and I want to stand up for it, and I'm going to be there, and all this other stuff. I'm going to be the right kind of guy. Okay? What if she doesn't want to keep the baby? Yeah. We don't think that's the whole thing right here, you guys. Those are the kinds of scenarios and things that we don't really stop and think about. Remember, we were walking around like this. I don't want to think about that. That's never going to happen to me. I don't want to think about that. I want you to be equipped. I want you to know that. Another thing, and this is something that you guys should write down. when we have sexual contact with somebody, there actually are hormones that are released, okay, that cause you to be more connected to that person and feel bonded to them, okay? There's a certain hormone for females, there's a certain hormone for guys, but just know that there's a hormone, okay, that is released with close contact. Now, and here's the tricky part. It's not just released just because you have sexual intercourse with somebody or sexual contact with somebody. The hormone can actually begin even with a long hug. Like if I hugged you for 20 seconds, that hormone has already taken place. And my husband and I have tried this. We're like, okay, let's have a hug for 20 seconds just so we can see what that's like, you know? And we're like, okay, is it, 12 seconds, 13 seconds, it's all like a really long, awkward hug. So it's not like you're going to really do that. But how much time are you spending in close contact with people? You're sitting on the couch hanging out with people. You're sitting in a car close to people. They're like backing off from each other in their corner over there. There's no bonding going on back there. Okay? So when we do have sexual activity, how much more that increases, okay? You know that whole thing when you see, whether it's someone that you know or you see it implied on TV, someone's in a relationship and when they break up, they're like, I need to be with this person, I'm going to die, or it just hurts so bad. What is it that's hurting so bad? That's part of this hormone connection. It's not something that you see, but it physically makes changes in your brain and how your brain functions in bonding you to this person. Okay? So you definitely need to know that there's those hormonal changes along with that. Now, here's another thing I want to just throw out there too. Girls who are sexually active, teen girls who are sexually active, are actually 3 times more likely to experience depression. Okay, you should write that down. So just because they were sexually active, their risk of depression goes up by 3 times. Okay, they're also, this is just a side note, but they're also 3 times more likely to attempt suicide as well. Okay? We're talking about some serious types of consequences that come along with these things, for these actions, for these emotions that we can't see but we feel. Okay? Now, real quick before I'm done, I want to make sure that you guys know what happened. So, as far as my life and my situation that I was in, I decided that I was going to keep my baby, which meant that I went through high school pregnant, and I graduated pregnant, and my son was born in July, the summer after I graduated. And actually, Serafina knows my son. He's 18. He's in college this year. Okay, not to pull you out, but she knows him. So this is like real stuff. Okay? He's older than all of you guys. I can totally be your mom. Think about that. That's like weird, huh? But I totally could be your mom. I have a son who's older than you. Okay? Now, here's the thing. Okay? The reason why I want you to know that, the reason why it's important for me to share that part of my life with you, is because I want you to understand that I get where you're at. We get where you're at when we come in here, based on things that have happened to us in our lifetime thus far. Okay? Jesse was mentioned earlier about how, these are products, and the purpose of a product is to make what? Money, right? We don't have a product to sell you at all. Okay? It's not about a product, it's about your life and your future, and the reason that we come here is because, quite truly, and we can say this in this school, but we come here because God loves you. And we've learned that love ourselves, and we want you to understand that kind of love too. Otherwise, we have no purpose in being here. Truly. Okay? But when I go home at night, it's kind of different when I say that now, because Kobe actually isn't really home. He's in Arizona right now. But when he was in high school still, I could say I go home at night and I got someone at home who's just like you. So I'm dealing with the things that are just like you. I also have a 10-year-old, and then we have Mon right now too. So, we're in this together. We're in this world with you. And our goal is we want to see you succeed. We want to see you make it in those dreams that you have. We want them to be your reality. Okay? We want that stuff to come true for you. So I want to have Jesse come up and share a little bit on the spot, on the fly. We still have to do a survey at the end, so be mindful of that. If we got time, Rob's got an interesting story. And actually, I could throw this out there too. This will just, I'll leave you a cliffhanger. This is like television. Rob's the guy that I had the kid with in high school. But we didn't get married. We've been married for 2 years. Okay? So, cliffhanger. How do you like that?
They're not even going to be listening to me. They're going to be like,
yeah, they are. You're going to listen. You got to listen now.
Did they time travel?
They did.
Okay, so my story comes with just like she said, a little bit of empathy. I don't have, I'll tell you the reason afterward. So basically when I got into college, there's something that goes on with a guy particularly, because I don't know how girls think, mainly because I'm not one, but I know how guys think because I am one, so you connect those dots. Well, something happened in my brain, in my friend's brain, that when you enter into high school, there's this whole question of when am I going to have sex? There was never an if. There was never an if. It was when. No one ever spoke to me about waiting. I've never heard that term virginity, second virginity, or anything like that. I just was like, when? Okay? So that's what I pursued, and I did that in high school, and I had that whole mindset of well, I gotta do this. I gotta do this, and I just went after it, and I started chasing it. Now, the reason I believe that 57% statistic of kids actually not having sex in high school is because I was that kid that was going around lying about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just going to people, and as far as my friends knew, I was a regular Casanova. You know what I mean? I was just telling them, like, you know, girls just love me. And it was the exact opposite. But either way, I won't talk about that. But either way, that was my whole mentality when I went into high school as a guy. So, and it was kind of a struggle for me because I really didn't know where I fit in with that. So I empathize with that. I empathize with you guys where it comes into that. It's just like, okay, when am I going to have sex? Like, when? Who's it going to be? And that type of thing. But I began to notice as my friends entered into high school and they got sexually active, there was something, I really began to trace it in my friends. They would meet someone, have a pretty decent friendship going on, and since I'm their friends, I knew when they became sexually active, and then the stark distinction afterwards to where their relationship, like Jenna was talking about in that hypothetical one, I was seeing that actually happen. Friends were hating each other, you know, East versus West, it was World War III going on, people turning on each other, that type of thing. And I began to notice, I'm just like, okay, how come after they have sex, something's happening in their relationship? It's just sex. It's just you move on with your life, you enjoy it, you move on with your life, and then there's that kind of thing that happens. Well, I began to notice that something happened differently after that. And I was sitting, something I remember my health teacher, Miss Wise, said when I was in high school. What she told me was, after she talks about STDs, she goes, I want you guys to think about this. If everybody had one partner, she wasn't just advocating waiting, she was advocating one partner. If everyone in the world just had one partner, how many STDs do you think would be in the world today? Let alone unplanned pregnancies. How many? STDs probably none. Unplanned pregnancies significantly lower. And I remember that, and I was sitting there thinking, I'm just like, I started, because I'm a critical thinker, and I was like, I was connecting these dots, and these things started happening, and I was starting to think, I'm just like, well, this can't just be sex. But I didn't know that for sure. So I was kind of hesitant. I backed off that mindset a little bit, but when I was 15, my mom got diagnosed with cervical cancer due to her sexual decision-making. She contracted HPV, and as a result, she got cervical cancer. So in 2003, my mom passed away from cervical cancer due to her sexual decision-making. Alright? The reason I know it was HPV because her boyfriend at the time had let me know and talked to me about that, what the doctors discussed with them. It clicked in my brain that sex cannot just be sex. I'm seeing people get affected emotionally. I'm seeing people get affected relationally. And it took my mom. I'm seeing that. So when I was about 15 or 16, I decided to just wait, to push it off. There wasn't necessarily a commitment to abstinence, but I decided to push it off, and I was like, I'm not really going to pursue that any longer. There's something more to it, and I just can't do that. Alright? And I made that decision, and I made that choice. I moved up, and I lived in Texas at the time, and I moved up here to Colorado when I was 18, a virgin. Alright? And now, when I was, oh sorry, I thought the next slide. And now, I start going to church, and I go down to church, and I meet this girl, and her name's Celine. And this girl, man, let me tell you, she's smoking hot. What? Tell you what. Very beautiful, and I'm very interested in her, and I begin to have a friendship with her. And And I remember one day, we pulled over, we expressed interest in each other, and we pulled over in Lassen's parking lot one day, right down there on Teal Boulevard, and I was like, look, I'm interested in you, I want to date you, and I want to move forward towards marriage. I'm not interested in anything else. I don't want to have sex with you. I want to keep this pure. I don't want to hurt you that way. I don't want to do this to myself. I don't want to do that. And to what her response to me and her great kindness, she began to flood with tears, and she said, I feel the exact same way, and I was about to tell you the exact same thing. So carry that on to 4 years later that we were dating and courting. 2 years later, on 2010, January 2nd, I got married to my wife, a virgin. And my wife got married to me, a virgin. And the reason I say that is because I know a lot of people share these shock stories of like, I got infected with HIV when I was 14 and, you know, and all that stuff. But the reason I like to share my story in that way is this. Number one, guys, you're not missing out on anything if you wait. But if you do wait, you have everything there for you. There was nothing I had to take over into my marriage and my partner. There was no STD. There was no babies in Texas I don't know anything about. None of that happened. You know, none of that happened. And for girls, the reason I like sharing my story is this. They're out there, and you're worth waiting for. You really are. There are guys out there who will wait, and you're worth that. And guys, you're worth that too. Alright, that's my story. It's a little bit shorter. It's not as awesome as Jenna's.
No, that's awesome, dude.
But
Kitty,
there you go.
come on. We're going to give you these surveys. I want you to fill them out right now. We go to 12:06, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, a couple things I want to note, and then maybe I'm going to have Rob share like for a couple minutes again.
Sure.
Okay. Fill everything out. Be honest. You're not putting your name on it. It's a school. I want to make sure you guys understand that what secondary virginity means. It means if you have been sexually active, okay, in the past, it means that you can make a physical choice, and actually all the other things too, mental, emotional, all the things. You're making a specific choice to not continue that behavior in the future. You're choosing, even though you may have done something in the past, to not be doing it in the future, okay? And that's what secondary virginity is all about. And that's what I chose in my life. Okay, do we have pictures on here still, Jesse?
Yes, two. There's you and your awesome cat.
And then you got yours on here?
Yes.
Okay, so here's me and my family. That's Colby when he graduated last year, so you guys see us, you know, like for who we really are. There's Jesse and Celine, and their baby girl Georgia. Hi. She's the chub.
She is the chub.
Alright, just so you kind of see some of the realness of this stuff for you as well. And then I'm going to have Rob come up and share real quick some of his, whatever comes to mind. I don't know, you got 2 minutes, so.
2 minutes? Sweet.
Yeah, 2.5.
Alright, I want to talk about choices you guys make. Just talk about, you have your plan, you don't get to choose when you're born, but you're born, then you get to, make decisions as you go. And as your plan, the future. Jenna had the plan of going to school, and doing all that, and her plan got, 90 degrees off the side. I know someone, we'll call her Ann. She's from the Philippines. Her dad worked super hard so that her mom could run this school, basically, for these orphans. And so she grew up, no money. She decided that she was going to make a difference. She wanted to become, when she was about your age, she decided that she was going to wait until marriage, and she decided she was going to become a nurse. Well, she graduated early, got her college degree in the Philippines early. She was a registered nurse. She tried to come into America to work here, but she wasn't 21 yet. I mean, this is how early she graduated. So she had to wait until she was 21. She came here to the LA area. She worked as a nurse. She bought her own home. She had her own car. She worked for, until she was about 30. She's still working, but so she was very diligent, working her plan, doing her thing. 30, she was dating a guy. They decided to go on a little trip. They were coming back. She did the Dumb and Dumber thing, got on the wrong way exit, and headed away from LA instead of to LA. By the time they realized this, it's too late. They ended up staying at a hotel, and this hotel had a casino. The casino gave you free drinks. She didn't know anything about drinking either. She was so focused on her plan and working her plan. She stayed away from that too. She saw these pretty drinks. She said, "Oh, those look fun." started drinking. She woke up the next day and was like, what did I do? The guy's like,